Hi, my name's Ian Wallace. I call myself the Messed Up Counsellor, which is quite an intriguing name. And the podcast you're about to see is one of many, and we've been doing about a year now. So you can look back and see all the things we've talked about with guests and on my own over the process. A lot of the information I use in the podcast initially came from the first book I wrote in 2011. Why do we do that? What do we do about it? And that came out and was the basis of all my learning, understanding at that time, which is going back a few years now. And that process of understanding how the world works for people, how we can alter, change, and adapt it, was kind of what it was there to do with the initial stages. I've made that now an audiobook as well, so it's available on Amazon as an audio file that you can check out and you can download to your heart's content, and hopefully that will be helpful. In the podcasts, we're trying to look at all sorts of things that about human interactions, human dynamics, the world, and how we might understand it more or change it more. So it gives you lots of ideas and tools in order to think about and look at different ways of being or dealing with things. And hopefully that brings people together and makes people more able to connect and communicate. Lots of topics. If you ever want to connect to me, just obviously drop me a comment on the podcast and I shall try as much as possible to reply. And if you've got any ideas of things that we might want to use on the podcasts, then please let me know. My name's Ian Wallace. Thanks for looking and thanks for listening. Hi, and welcome to another podcast from Ian Wallace, the Messed Up Counsellor. Today, what I'd like to look at is something that people don't necessarily see in themselves, which is giving gifts and receiving attention. That they have a kind of a awkwardness with it, and sometimes definite kind of don't do that for me kind of process. Usually that comes from somebody who has a drive to make sure everybody else is okay, save people, take that action, make things happen, kind of over the top of other people. And so gifts for Christmas and birthdays would be an example. So when they receive those gifts, they feel as though they are the centre of attention. They don't necessarily like to be the centre of attention. And they usually bat them back. They say, no, don't think about me. It's okay, and they kind of give that gift or that process back to the person that's giving them. So when you get those things happening, it's very hard sometimes to understand what's going on. It's not easy to work it out. What it does, though, in reality, is it disrespects the person giving the gift, and the person who's receiving the gift obviously doesn't get the reward, the satisfaction, whatever it is that the gift is trying to do. They don't understand that by refusing the gift, they're then disrespecting the person giving it. They see it as a don't think about me, let's think about you kind of a process. And they don't look at the wider aspects or the wider process that's in play. When we get those people in the counselling room and we're working with them to try to, in a sense, relax them on these things and make them more able to accept and maybe make them more able to acknowledge that the giver of the gift is, in a sense, getting satisfaction, getting some kind of positive energy from it. And when we're doing that work, it's not easy to separate out that, well, I'm looking after the other person and they don't need to look after me, because that comes from a process of wanting to help, wanting to be able to look after somebody or make somebody okay. So, I mean, the drive is pretty much a good idea. It's a positive process. I'm looking after you. It's not a bad thing. But when we overstep that and it becomes out of control, it becomes something we turn away from, that receiving or being able to accept things. That process means if you keep it going, if you keep doing that, then it's like a speeding train with no brake. It means that everything has to be done by you. Nobody can do anything for you. And that becomes much more of a pain sometimes, because you can't keep that going. It's impossible to look after everybody and save everybody and take all the responsibility for everything, because eventually you'll burn out quite naturally. So trying to get the person to understand that, yes, it's a positive thing that you're doing, but there has to be some kind of limit, some kind of stop button. Counsellors, generally speaking, have a need to be needed, which is why, or part why, what we do the job. But if we had that in every part of our life, then that would be really, really not good, because you wouldn't be able to relax. You would always be constantly on your guard, making sure everybody's okay, talking about everybody else's stuff and not talking about your own stuff. So trying to remove that drive, that dynamic, or to at least bring it under control, is not easy. So I kind of like relate it to the person in the room by, well, okay, if you were going for a coffee with somebody, for example, not a lot of money, not a lot of expense. Well, it depends where you get your coffee from nowadays, obviously. Some coffees are quite expensive. But if you go into a general coffee shop and buying a coffee for somebody, sometimes you'll jump in and you'll say, no, I'll get you it. And that's a good thing. You're looking after somebody. But the person that offered to pay for that coffee that's with you, they go through a couple of things. They find that you're not respecting their offer. So you're not allowing their offer to be received. So they get a negative response from that. I'm wanting to do this for you. I'm wanting to look after you. And you don't allow them to. The second thing is, over a period of time, they eventually will stop even asking if you want a coffee. Because every time they've asked in the past, you've kind of like knocked it back. You've kind of rebuffed it. So then what happens is you get that process of feeling as though people are taking advantage of you. People are taking advantage of your good nature, your kind of good process. And then it becomes a negative thing for you as well as them. It takes a while sometimes, and it's not something that happens overnight. But it's kind of like it builds and builds and builds and builds. And it means that anybody that wants to give you anything, give you a gift, give you an accolade, give you love, give you care, give you attention, it becomes a negative process. So people just stop doing it. And if you're thinking to yourself that, people take advantage of me, people don't necessarily respect me, have a look at whether or not you accept things from other people. Small things. Coffee. Next time you go for a coffee with somebody, just think about what's going on in the process of getting a coffee. Are you feeling guilty about receiving the gift? Are you feeling awkward? Are you jumping in? What is the other person that's with you doing? How are they feeling? What's going on for them? Are they feeling as though like you're disrespecting their offer? Have a conversation with them if you're friends with them and if they're close to you, and see what's going on for them. Because you won't necessarily initially see it because you're looking after them, which is a good thing, as I've said. But how they react, how they work with that process, means that it's going to be hard for them to feel equal, feel as though they have a role in your world and your life, feeling as though they can look after you. And that process means that you might be connecting to that drive, that impulse, that compulsion, if you like, to make sure everybody else is okay. But eventually, it'll mean that nobody can make you okay. And that's where it becomes a problem. That's where we find people in the counselling room burnout. Well, one of the reasons for burnout. Because they have that drive, that commitment to make sure, always make sure, everybody else is okay before them. Now, if you're doing that to children, your children, then from a very early age, you're giving them that understanding that actually I don't need to think about anybody because everybody thinks about me. And that's not necessarily helpful because they might grow up with a process that says, I shouldn't think about anybody else. I should be, just thinking about myself. I shouldn't worry about other people's needs and requirements because I don't need to. That's probably not a good thing. That's probably something that actually wouldn't be helpful. Yeah. When you've got that drive, that determination to make sure other people are okay, there's a tipping point, as I've said, and that tipping point is when it becomes, instead of a positive process, becomes a negative process. And that's when it causes problems. So as you're moving forward with this process of awareness, if you're that kind of a person, then try the next time it comes up, if you know it's going to happen, try to pre-plan what you're going to do. Try and pre-plan that, not jumping forward and offering first. Giving it a space, letting other people look after you. It will feel awkward. It will feel awkward. And it'll feel possibly guilty, selfish, all those kind of negative emotions. But stay with it. See what happens. And if you know the person, if you're friendly with them, see what their reaction was if previously you've jumped in and helped them, jumped in and bought them the coffee. See what their reaction is this time. See if it's one that was positive or negative. How did they feel about that encounter? Did it make them feel good? Because that way you can start taking this apart and looking at it in a bit more of a intricate detail of reactions and interactions. You never know, you might be surprised. Because what you would generally find is that they would feel closer to you if you let them buy your coffee. They would feel more connected. They would feel happier. They would feel more talking to you and letting you talk to them, letting you share with them. And then, you never know, you might find that you rebalance that process. It's not an easy one. It really isn't. But if you can kind of look at it, dissect it, pull it apart, and kind of see what's going on, then you might have, or you might find you have, better relationships, more connected, more people who can and will look after you. I remember the first time one of my daughters bought me a meal, and it was a very weird process. I'd been thinking about this stuff myself, and it's part of everybody's life, as I've said, or a lot of people's lives. And that process of stopping myself, getting my wallet out, getting my card out, getting my cash out, was very scary in some senses, because it was like, keep your hand in your pocket, keep your wallet in your pocket, don't offer your card. And that process, once they had bought that meal for me and showed me that they cared about me, it did create a difference between the two of us, which was really good and really positive. And it's still now, even today, and that was a few years ago, as you can imagine. But even now, today, that process is not easy for me. It's not easy to sit with it and not jump in and not take that action of paying for it. But if you can make it happen, if you can resist that temptation to jump in, then you will normally find it becomes a positive. It might be different for that person you're with as well, obviously, because it's an interactive, reactive process is relationships. But if you can do it, then they will feel much more adult, much more on a level par with you, much more in a place that respects their processes, their age, their relationship with you. And you never know. You might receive some really nice feedback, and a coffee or a meal or a present or whatever it is that you're receiving, you might cherish it more. You'll find some people, what they do when they receive presents, for example, they don't necessarily give it respect. They don't necessarily look at it, go through with it, try it out, use it, whatever in that initial giving process. And that can be a real eye-opener as to what your drive is. Don't worry about me, don't care about me, kind of a process. So when you're receiving a gift, do you stop when you've unwrapped it? Do you look at it? Do you pay attention to it? Very early on in my working life, I had to meet people, sell to people, connect to people. And a boss at the time was doing some work in Japan. And he said, well, when we go to this trade fair and we get anybody that's Japanese, you have to deal with their business card differently. And I said, why? It's a business card. You put it in your pocket, you save it till later. No, you don't. No. You take the business card, you look at it and examine it for a short while, not for a long while. And that's showing respect to the person in front of you. You're respecting their name. You're respecting their position. You're respecting who they are. And I found that interesting at the time. Obviously, I wasn't doing counselling in those days. And it learnt me a lesson that you have to acknowledge other people because that's showing them respect. And obviously, that's a big thing with the Japanese. Well, it's a big thing with any culture, showing respect. But more so, I was told, for the Japanese. My boss had businesses, connections all over the world. And so when I did that the first time, it felt a bit weird, to be fair, looking at the business card and studying it. But I could see the benefit of it. I could see the connection in it. I could see the way that that Japanese person was connecting to me, was feeling more reassured by me, more respected by me, and built a better relationship for the business because of it. So when you receive things from other people, don't just put them in your pocket or put them down. Take it, hold it, acknowledge it, say thank you, obviously, but take time with it. Don't just put it away. You know, when you go to people's houses where they've bought you a gift previously, maybe they've bought you a shirt or a jumper, would you wear that shirt and jumper when you met them to show them that you're using that product, using that piece of clothing? Because that would show them respect. Oh, they're still wearing it or they're still using it. They haven't thrown it away. They haven't given it to charity. You know? Think about that. See whether you've got that drive, that way of being. And if you have, alter it, change it, take control of it, and you'll find you'll have a much more balanced relationship with people, which will be good for everybody, not just you. And that's the way to think about it when you kind of feel that it's uncomfortable. That you're doing this for somebody else. You're actually helping them. You're actually making them feel needed, respected, valued. And that's a good thing, obviously. if you've enjoyed this podcast and enjoyed any podcast from me, please hit the like and share button, and hopefully you'll give other people a chance to maybe think about these things and maybe look at how their world and their life revolves around them and others. My name's Ian Wallace. I'm the Messed Up Counsellor. Take care. Hi, thanks for listening to the podcast, and hopefully it made sense and was interesting for you. Please subscribe, like and share. With the podcasts, you never know who will be helped by the things we talk about, things we share. We don't normally tell people our problems, but by sharing it and helping other people to understand things. The book Insecurity, It's All About Me, is also available now through Amazon, and it gives you an understanding of what drives insecurity, how insecurity works within our human dynamics, and how you can get a much more secure connection with people. It gives you lots of ideas and thoughts, which is really good. So thanks for listening. Subscribe, like, share, hit the button, and if you've got any comments, please give me them, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks very much. Take care.